A drug addiction is you chasing the echo of a brilliant song that was once sung to you. And before you realize it, once you get to the end of the cave, you're just surrounded in darkness, hearing the weird, tweaked, misshapen song that you once heard.
In this episode, we are joined by Tomy Parker, a Marine Corps veteran who deployed for his first and only time to Afghanistan with the 3rd Battalion, 5th Marine Regiment. In December 2010, while on foot patrol, Tomy stepped on an improvised explosive device, resulting in the amputation of his right leg above the knee, his left leg at the hip, and all of his fingers on his left hand, saving his thumb. For the next 18 months, Tomy went through extensive rehabilitation to learn to live his life without his legs. Tomy returned to Montana, where his hometown community rallied to welcome him home. Soon after, he lost his purpose in life and replaced it with drugs. This led him down the long, dark road of substance abuse for the better part of a decade, ultimately resulting him in spending 18 months incarcerated. While incarcerated, Tomy turned his life around and found his purpose to push once again. Since then, he has gone on to become an adaptive athlete. He has competed in 7 half marathons, 1 full marathon, and is currently training to race in his first Ironman. Tomy continues to push himself every day with his training and has future goals of starting his own business with the help of Warrior Rising, as well as competing in larger scale marathons such as the Boston Marathon. Tomy continues helping others by shattering perceived limitations and stereotypes that disabled people can't and showing that disabled people will. Tomy's unique ability to find light in darkness and find comedy in dim situations allows him to have a potentially greater impact on those to whom he speaks.
Real stories, real heroes, for a real cause. This is Never Left Behind, the podcast. Tomy, what's going on, man? We're super stoked to have you on for this episode, and I think it's been a while since we last saw you, and it's great to have you on and just hear your full story. So thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, so last time, for people listening, that we saw you was in Salt Lake City.
Yep.
And at the Warrior Rising event. And no, that was Mission 60? Warrior
No,
Rising?
it was a Warrior Rising.
No, it was
Yeah.
Warrior Rising event. Yeah.
That's right.
It was a business shower, the first one that they actually ran that year, to be precise. It was cool.
I was getting confused because I feel like they both come together, like for the same events and all that. Just because Jason runs both, but
It's a lot of the staff at the both events. So
yeah. Well, to get started, we have a lot to talk about with you tonight, and I want to kind of obviously just go full circle, but let's start with the beginning and what encouraged you to want to be part of the Marine Corps? Like, where did that kind of story come about?
So what encouraged me, I guess, to be part of the Marine Corps isn't anything cool, to be entirely honest. I know some people that are like, oh, I had a call to purpose, and especially around my generation, being 31 with, I was in 6th grade during 9/11 and stuff. So you think I might have had a call to purpose, but actually all that happened was I didn't take school serious. Mm-hmm. I partied and just went there to hang out with girls because I couldn't find them anywhere else. School was the easiest spot, in my opinion. And then I thought I was going to make it to college ball and play in the NFL. I was a big dude. I was strong. I was athletic. But I didn't know that colleges wanted you to have good grades and stuff for them to give you scholarships or anything. So when I tried to go to college, they said, yeah, you could come play, but we can't give you any money to go to school here. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't go to school because I couldn't afford school. So I had a buddy that was my best friend in high school, joined the Marine Corps, and he actually asked me to go talk to the recruiter because he was on recruiter's assistance. I'd already spoken to a recruiter when I was in high school, and I was 3 or 5 pounds overweight, something like that, the day that I met with him. And it was the day wrestling season started. And so I was like, dude, if you wait till after practice, I'll weigh what you want me to. And he was like, nope, lose the weight and then we can talk. So I was real mad at the Marine Corps until I talked to the second recruiter, and he shot me straight. And the Marine Corps was awesome.
Where were you at during 9/11? Because that's interesting. You're the same age as I am, and I was in 6th grade when it happened.
I was sitting in my living room eating a bowl of cereal. I didn't see the first plane hit, But I remember my mom and stepdad at the time talking about it and saying like, "Oh, that's weird. I wonder how often that happens," because it was on TV, so you think it was like a freak of nature or
We
some
all
sort
thought
of
it was an
fluke.
accident.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was some sort of a fluke. And then on live television, the second one hit, and then it was like, whoa. We spent all day, because my girlfriend's the same age. We spent all day in school just watching the news and talking about it. And I mean, in sixth grade, I couldn't comprehend or grasp what
No.
had just occurred.
It's that second plane that hit. That's where all of our thoughts were like, no, this isn't an accident.
Yeah,
this is an
something else
attack.
is
And then
going
two
on.
more planes.
Yeah, it
We're
doesn't,
coming.
it doesn't accidentally happen multiple times.
No.
Yeah. So what was your MOS going in the Marine Corps? Like, did you kind of have a separate idea of what you wanted to become, or did you always know what you were going to go into?
So when I went and spoke to the recruiter initially, I told him I wanted to be in the infantry. Like the good recruiter he was like, "There's no spots available," when there really was. They're just trying to fill all the other ones.
Yep.
But I ended up going in 03 open is what my contract was. So infantry open. I went through the school of infantry and everything. Ended up being in 0311, which is your basic rifleman for those of you that are listening that don't know. And then from after I got done with all my schooling, I got sent to the Fleet Marine Force at Camp Pendleton on San Mateo, to be exact.
Yeah.
And I was with 3rd Battalion, 5th Marine Regiment. I don't know how I stumbled over where I was. Like, it's not stolen valor. I know where I was. No, but
We're going to get called out.
yeah, they're like, "Is this guy really a veteran?" Like, no, birth defect. It's not even a. Anyway, but no, I was at 3rd Battalion, 5th Marine Regiment on San Mateo on the north end of Camp Pendleton. And then September 28th of you just want me to keep rolling, or are you going to ask me more questions?
No, keep going, because I want to hear kind of front to back.
Okay. September 28th of 2010, I went on my first and only deployment. We deployed to Sangin, Afghanistan. And then while on a dismounted patrol, December 11th of 2010, I stepped on an improvised explosive device, resulting in the loss of all the fingers on my left hand. Sorry, my hand looks gross. You can't see my right leg. It amputated my right leg just above the knee, and it amputated my left leg at the hip. So ultimately what it did is it left me 4'2", 220 pounds, and brutally handsome. And, I've been trying to wade through that ever since. But
so is it true that they call Camp Pendleton Marines Hollywood Marines?
yes.
Okay, that's what I've heard. So I grew up, and Dan spent most of his time in Yucca Valley. So we were right outside 29 Palms Marine Base. So I don't know if you've ever been.
I've been there. It's horrible.
Every Marine, I think when they get their papers that they're getting stationed 29, they're like, fuck, I got to go there.
One of my best friends, when we went through the School of Infantry, so at the end of the School of Infantry, they give everybody their papers saying where they're going and all this stuff. And one of the guys that I went through at School of Infantry with got orders to 17, which is out in 29 Palms. And we didn't know anything about where that was yet or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then he went out there and he called me like the week after he got there. And he's like, "Dude, this is hell. This is literally hell. I hate this place."
And most of those Marines go down to Camp Pendleton to get away. Like
yes,
they'll go to the beaches
to.
down there. They'll go to Huntington Beach. They'll go to like Riverside. Most of them, and I think the nearby places of anything to do is they'll leave base and go to like Palm Springs. There's just nothing to go out there.
Or go to Vegas, cut across Amboy Road.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're complaining about it being really hot and there nothing being out there. But if you're an infantry Marine, 29 Palms is a cool place because all of their ranges are live fire. I mean, what are you going to ruin in the desert other than the desert tortoise, which ruins itself if you scare it. So it's fine.
Yeah. Or if you pick them up on the side of the road, they piss themselves and they die.
And die. Yeah. What kind of self-defense?
People don't know that. Yeah, people don't know that. I thought people would know by now, but every time it's funny you mention Amboy, because if I make that drive out there, you get a lot of the Instagram influencers that are out there taking photos near the old Roy's Diner. And then there's always like tortoise crossing, and people are just like, "Oh, I'm going to pick them up and help them so they don't get hit." And you're like, "Yeah, you just killed it. Good job."
It does. You killed it and you committed a federal offense.
Yeah.
They shut down ranges when I was in 29 Palms because we thought that there was a turtle on it. Like, it was crazy.
But I remember growing up out near there, and you'd hear your windows shake, you'd hear the bombing, and we loved it. So I know Marines, when they have those live fire ranges, that's probably the best place to be.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so, and to go back, obviously you talked about the accident that you had, and that was in Iraq,
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan,
Yeah.
excuse me. How did that go about? Like, I kind of want to hear more of the story behind that and what happened on that patrol.
Okay. How gruesome do you want it to be? Because I was conscious. I remember most of it.
Okay. I would say
So
whatever you're comfortable with sharing. This is
Yeah.
your story,
okay.
so we're on your
Okay,
time.
then let's wade down this rabbit hole. So as I said a second ago, December 11th of 2010, I stepped on an improvised explosive device, or IED. Anyway, um, prior to that, the day before, we'd been given information that there was an IED in front of this farmer's house that he wanted detonated because he was fearful of his kids getting injured. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is that there were a lot of civilian casualties because of IEDs over there, because the Taliban doesn't remember where they're at, nor do they care, really. At least not that I saw. Anyway, so we looked at it, the information, and built a terrain model and everything. And it honestly looked like an ambush to me. Like, I was like, I don't like this. But we went anyway. By then, we'd taken so many casualties that what used to be my team had been completely dissolved and sent to different parts of the squad. We didn't have a full squad anymore. And I was the last guy out of 20.
Wow.
We walked all the way out there. We found the IEDs. We detonated them in place. Nothing bad happened. Everything was okay. And then we turned around and returned to base. And when we set up our route, our patrol base could see this ridge line all the way up to a road that locals regularly drove on. So we could follow a similar route because they couldn't backlight. It was already cleared as long as our post was doing their job. At the top of the ridge, the road that locals drove on, when we turned off of it and turned left, we'd barely gotten off the road and we got shot at. Being the last guy out of 20, I turned around and held rear security, trying to figure out where it came from. I was unable to figure out where it came from, and our squad leader said that we needed to push on because it would be hard to find IEDs in the dark. And it would soon be dark. It was about 4:35 p.m., kind of getting dusk. So we turned around, and to try to hold rear security, myself and another Marine began to leapfrog, meaning that he would hold and I would move forward. And once I was set, he would move forward. And we'd done that maybe twice. I might have made it 50 feet. And I felt an instant overwhelming pressure and weightlessness, as though I was floating in the air.
Wow.
For those of you that have played sports or football or anything, and you've had somebody kind of ear hole you on both sides of your helmet, you get discombobulated briefly. That's exactly what it was like. Like, I couldn't hear anything. I was dizzy and discombobulated. And then I slammed back into the ground, and then time went back to normal. When I was floating or weightless, it seemed like time had almost stood still. Everything was really, really slow.
Yeah.
I don't know if it really did or anything like that, but that's how it appeared to me. And then once I slammed back into the ground, I was now sitting in the crater that was formed by the explosion. I immediately looked down at my legs, or what used to be my legs. My right leg, I could see exposed bone on the end of my leg, which what I assume was my tibia and fibia. And my left leg looked like it had been ran through a meat grinder, just a mass of hamburger held together by rubber bands and tendons.
Jeez.
And that's when, and it was so dusty, I couldn't have seen my hand in front of my face if I wanted to. And then shortly after I hit the ground, what seemed like literally milliseconds, a figure came rushing through the dust, and it was our corpsman. He was telling me to lay down. And I refused to lay down, honestly. Like, I was looking at stuff kind of in awe. And it's funny, he's maybe 5 foot tall. He grabbed me by my chest and slammed me onto my back, and then started working on me. And so they put a tourniquet on my right, or they got an IV in my right arm, put a tourniquet on my right leg, and it started to put tourniquets and combat gauze on my left leg. And that's when the stretcher arrived. But before that, Herrera kept yelling, which was our corpsman's name, I can't get it to stop bleeding. I can't get it to stop bleeding. He had put 2 tourniquets on my left leg and stuffed it as full of combat gauze that he could fit inside of it, and it wouldn't stop bleeding.
Jeez.
They got me on the stretcher. A dude that I'm actually still very close friends with carried the stretcher up to me. We got me loaded down, and we started to go down this ridge. And we were slanted kind of like this. There we go. Kind of like that, if that gives you an idea. And so the corpsman was trying to carry the IV bag and not be in the way of anybody. And so I took it from him. That way he didn't have to walk outside of what I thought was a cleared path. As we're walking down the hill, I'm holding my own IV bag, and I ask another gentleman named Tomasu. I was like, dude, are my legs still there? Like, I can feel them. And he's like, no, bro, they're gone. And then I asked him this, the second most important question that everybody I ever treated that got blown up asked me. And I was like, bro, is my shit still there? And he's like, you're what? I was like, bro, like my dick, like, is everything still there? And it hurt my feelings because I asked him, I was like, and he's like, oh, I didn't check. I was like, what? Hold on a second. We've been around explosions, bro. Like,
Stop
you know
carrying
that
me.
I'm going
Hold
to
on.
ask you that at some point in time. Everything's still there. But so then after that, somebody asked Finney, the guy that carried the stretcher, he's like, hey, is the route cleared? This is kind of irrelevant, but I think it's funny. He kind of mumbles something indiscernible, and they ask again if the route's cleared, and he says, no. So we think we're going to step on an IED. We don't. We make it to the truck. On our Casevac down the hill, the IV gets pulled out of my arm because I had to let go of it. And then, so this part I don't remember, but I like telling it. So the guy that carried the stretcher told me that when we got to the truck, he asked me how I was doing. And apparently I responded, all bloody and bandaged, thumbs up all day, bro. And then they loaded me on the truck. I don't remember that. He tells me that I said it, and he's not really a bullshitter, so I believe him I said it. Mm-hmm. But after they got me on the truck, I don't really remember everything that clearly. It was really hazy in and out. The only thing I do remember is I kept arguing with the corpsman that I wouldn't die. I just needed to take a nap. And he told me that I would in fact die. I could not nap. And one time I tried to fall asleep, and he kept, I don't know how else to describe this, but he kept bitch slapping me every time that my eyes would close at all.
It's almost like when you get a concussion, they got to keep you awake.
He would slap the shit out of me every time my eyes closed. And then from there, I briefly remember being loaded on the helicopter. I don't really tell that part of the story because it's really fuzzy, and memory is interesting. We like to fabricate things, and I don't want it to be untrue.
Yeah.
From there, I was snowed, and I woke up in the hospital in Bethesda, Maryland, 3 days later.
When you say you were snowed, what do you mean by that?
They put me to sleep, is what I was told is called.
Almost like into a coma?
Yeah, a medically induced coma.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why I asked that is because I think I've heard that term before too, and I believe not only do they put you on a medically induced coma, but the way that I understood, they even put you on ice to slow everything down. But
okay.
I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but that's what I thought it was, and so I didn't know if you knew.
That would make sense.
No, I didn't know. I got told by the medical staff that they snowed me and transported me. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
You just took an ice bath for 3 days.
Okay. But yeah, then I woke up in Bethesda, Maryland, and when I opened my eyes, I saw my mom and my uncle Rick. It had only been 3 days, but to me it had been minutes and hours, not days. So I thought I was still in Afghanistan. And I began to panic, tell them they couldn't be here, they're not safe. I was put back to sleep and woke up either later that day or the following day. I don't know. And when I asked my mom, she couldn't remember. And from there I tried to learn my perceived disabled life, if you will. 10 days after I made it to the hospital was the first time I sat up in my hospital bed and crawled into my wheelchair. The nurses told me that was a very quick time, that they hadn't seen many other people do it that quickly, and asked what my driving factor was, and I didn't have one. I said I got tired of looking at the walls in my room. But as I've gotten older and looked back on it, my driving factor was, 4 days before I got injured, the guy I would say I was probably the closest with in my platoon and my team got injured. We have almost the same exact injuries, except he has 2 fingers on his left hand. But he got moved into my room in the hospital, and so we were roommates and everything. And to have a brother, I guess, next to me was really nice. I remember one morning we had just gotten breakfast, and it was a tough morning. I don't know what it was. I was crying alligator tears, like grown-ass alligator tears, trying to figure out what I was going to do. And he calmly said to me, he's like, dude, it sucks. Trust me. He's like, but we got to keep fucking moving forward. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. And I didn't believe the words then. I didn't know how to, but now I understand.
That's a hard thing I can imagine too, to push yourself through, to be one day you're walking and then in split seconds, you know, mentally that you're never going to walk again properly.
Okay. You said properly. I was going to say, they do a good job when you first get injured, of trying to keep you filled with hope, I guess, that like, oh yeah, we're going to get you rebuilt. We're going to get you prosthetics. We're going to get you moving. But being a hip disarticulate, so to play off of what you said, me regularly walking, like a regular ambulation, isn't a thing, at least with the technology that exists now, isn't a thing that'll be ever again. Like, can I walk? I do have prosthetics. I do walk sometimes. Will I be able to walk for special occasions or something like that? Yeah. But something that might make the users laugh, or the listeners laugh and everything. I haven't had legs so long, I forgot what it's like to have them.
Really?
I forgot I could not tell you what it was like to walk.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Or to run or anything like that. Okay. So here's another thing. I have not stood up to pee in 11 years. So I don't remember what that's like.
It makes sense, because I can imagine if you go on for so long and you adapt, you're just kind of like, okay, well, this is what it is. And I don't remember what it was like back then. So this is who I am now.
Yeah. And people look at me and say like, oh, you had your legs taken. So I was 21. Like, oh, you had your legs taken from you at such a young age. Like, that's got to be horrible. Like, it gave me a lot of time to still learn.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, as we get further into my story with this podcast, you'll understand that I'm a person that learns from failure. So I needed a lot of time to learn.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's such. We were talking earlier with somebody else as well, and we were talking about, especially just going back to your foot patrols and everything as a Marine, just that whole experience, and a lot of people don't understand what it's like, especially that time in the war, clearing IEDs, doing a lot of battle space ownership, and trying to be like the constant presence in the area. And I could just imagine, like you said, your platoon, your squad was getting wiped out left and right. I mean, how did mentally you stay in the fight, like even just stay to where you had to keep going out on mission and things like that? I know it's recalling a little bit, but
okay. It's simple, I guess, for me to recall if I had to try to bring it up. Loyalty is a really, really big thing to me. When we deployed, a lot of, like, we got told where we were going. A lot of guys looked, researched it, tried to see what was on the news, try to ask. I didn't do that because I didn't care. Like, to this day, I can tell you why they sent us there, but I don't know why they sent us there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so what kept me going is that, like, I had to. Like, I'm naturally a funny, like a funny dude that tries to find silver linings and everything. And I felt, at least in Afghanistan, that if I let that lapse, that the morale would break. Like, every time we stepped out, somebody got shot at or blown up or something like that. I mean, a prime example of, like, being shot at wasn't that big of a fear, which probably will catch some people off guard listening to this if they've never been shot at. But if you don't understand the principles of marksmanship, like, I'll stand in front of you. I don't care. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when I can't see a threat, that's more terrifying to me.
Yeah, we've talked about it once before on here. Is like one of the missions that, well, I've been on plenty of those missions, but just I would agree. Like, being in the face of your enemy, them shooting at you is a completely different process. Whereas you not knowing at any moment where you might step or take a knee or cross something, and just in a flash things will change. Like, that's so much more terrifying to try and process.
Well, I think it comes back to what you can control in it. So anytime that I looked down the sights and was engaging a combative, I trusted in the fact that the Marine Corps has literally force-fed me with a fire hose the principles of marksmanship, and that I'm going to be able to shoot better than them. Okay. But when you put IEDs and other things like that in there, then it just becomes fucking luck.
Yeah.
Like I'll tell you,
for that.
so like I said, I was the 20th guy when we walked over it. So 39 people walked over my IED because we walked over it and then back over it before I stepped on it.
Jeez.
That's crazy.
It's entirely luck.
Yeah.
And, that,
and it's interesting because I've even talked to other veterans that have lost limbs or just been struck by IEDs, and it was the same scenario where they would just be walking by themselves, or they would be, on a foot patrol going near a bridge where they saw other IEDs and they're staying away from those, but then all of a sudden they go down another path and there's more because the enemy was so smart to divert two different like corridors of them, and you just don't know. And to kind of back up, like you said, you like to have humor in things and you like to be funny. I noticed that right away when we met you in Salt Lake, is like obviously seeing that, you've been, have physical, challenges and the things you've been around, but seeing how you were so positive about it and how funny you were. Like, I think I remember we were outside and you were making a joke with, it might have even been JC, but you're like, oh, I'll just crawl out of my wheelchair and like come at you and start hammer fisting you. That was Tom. And I was laughing so hard because you're like, dude, if I'm on the ground out of my wheelchair is when I'm my strongest, and you don't want to fight me on the ground.
It is. I'm on a stable battle position there.
And to go from my point exactly is, what are some of the most challenging, obstacles you've had to overcome, and how have you been able to stay so positive?
I want to steal Joey Jones's quote.
You can steal it. It's fine.
Yeah. Joey Jones's quote is like, if you don't have your legs, how are you so happy? Well, you have both of yours. How are you so angry? It's something to that effect. Whoever listens to this that knows the real words of it, I apologize for plagiarizing it incorrectly. But the hardest thing to overcome since I've been injured, or one of the hardest things, reintegration of self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to present something to you with this. Dara and I actually had a conversation about this. Men are not innately valued in society. They're valued because of things that they provide, security, things like that. Okay. And so before I got injured, I was 6'3", 220, 250 pounds. I was a big dude.
Yeah, you're a big guy.
Now that I got injured, I'm, like I said, 4'2", 220, 210 right now. I don't know. But I didn't feel I could protect myself when I first got injured. Anybody that teaches you in the military, so if you go through any military training, they teach you about soft targets, hard targets, things like that. And so I felt, for anybody listening that doesn't know that, a soft target is an easy target. A hard target is something that would be harder to take. Pretty simple. So I felt, being a person in a wheelchair, I was a soft target, which I'm trying to think of the word to use. Amplifies, I guess, your initial PTSD. So I don't have any PTSD currently. I'm still rated for it, but it doesn't negatively impact my life in any way that I feel currently.
That's great.
It took a long time, but so I was worried that I was going to get hurt or beat up or robbed or something crazy. I didn't feel like I could protect myself. I went from a violent, chaotic, kinetic area to Southern California, like hanging out in the sun, but still worried that I couldn't protect myself. I had a guy that was a Muay Thai fighter try to teach me how to fight out of my wheelchair, stuff like that. And I had to, like I just brought up, failure. I had to go through some pointless things in my own hand to figure out that I'm actually still very capable. I had to overcome adversities that I fostered, actually. So to tell a little more about my story, you would think after I got injured and everything that I would just try to stay on the straight path, figure out how to be disabled and go on and be successful. But no, I decided to beta test narcotics for the better part of a decade. Starting off with opiates. I realized quickly that opiates don't just work for body pain. If you are mentally upset in any way, they will make everything's okay. You could get hit by a car, snort 3 oxys, and be fine. Or at least that's what I believed at the time. And so it grew bigger and bigger and bigger and out of control. And while this was going on, nobody really knew what was going on because I kept it quiet. My close family didn't. There were some friends and other people that knew that I honestly didn't think would care or judge me, or I didn't care about their opinion of me. They weren't people that I valued. And so this went on and went on further, and it got bigger and bigger. And so I also got given a house by Homes for Our Troops, and some other nonprofits had been trying to help me do some things. And I spit in all their faces. So December 11th of 2016. Okay, so we fast forward a little bit. My house got raided by the Lake County Sheriff's Department the first time.
Is that exactly 5 years to the day of your injury?
Yes, it is. It's exactly.
Wow.
It was on purpose. It was on purpose.
That makes sense. You planned it.
So, the police didn't plan it. I brought up a gentleman earlier. We'll call him Monty, in the podcast, that was injured 4 days before me. And he had heard that I was struggling with drugs, and so he reached out to some of the other guys that helped Casevac me, treat me, that I was in the Marine Corps with and everything, and they did a surprise intervention on the day I was injured. Okay, the Lake County Sheriff's Department took it as an opportunity to enter my house without a legal search warrant and raid my home. They raided my home. They secured drugs, money, people, everything. And then the Marines entered. And to show you the kind of mindset I was in, I thought I would comically try to interject at some points in times when they pulled out their prepared words to read to me. And then there were other people that I literally told, I don't know why you even came. We aren't fucking friends. I didn't like you when we were in the Marine Corps. Like, that's the mentality I was in to these gentlemen trying to help me. Then, so my mom was also working with them, and they'd all planned for me to go to treatment. So I'd already gone to treatment twice by this time. Altogether, I've gone to drug treatment 9 times. And I've gone to PTSD treatment twice total, I think. But that's just because every time that I would get incarcerated or start to get in trouble, I would be like, I have a problem. Will you fix me? And then they would send me somewhere to fix me, but I wouldn't be willing to be fixed. I would play their game. So after that, they were supposed to take me to a drug treatment center in Sheridan, Wyoming. Monty drove me down there, and what nobody knew when they raided the house is that I snuffed drugs out of the raid. And I snuck them into treatment with me. And I overdosed on heroin in a hospital room at a VA drug treatment center in Sheridan, Wyoming. So when we got there, they didn't actually have a room open for me, even though they said that they did. They actually acted like they didn't even know I was coming. They put me in a regular hospital room to detox. Didn't search my gear or anything like that. And so I continued to use OD. They Narcaned me in the hospital. And if, for those of you that don't know, Narcan forces your body into immediate opiate withdrawal. So I spent 72 hours purging everything that was in my body out of any end it felt like coming out of.
Jeez.
And, but while that happened, I got a phone call from my attorney who told me that the sheriff's department didn't have a warrant. And so anything that they found, I couldn't be charged with. It also meant that I didn't have to stay in the treatment center anymore. So I immediately left against medical advisement. One good thing did come of it, though. While there, I decided that I was no longer going to do heroin, only meth.
Cold turkey.
Yeah,
cold turkey.
I took off from there. What?
You went cold turkey.
I went cold turkey from heroin using meth.
That's an upgrade.
It doesn't have as bad withdrawals from it. I can tell you that much. But do you want me to keep going down this story? Do you guys have any questions?
No, I have. I'm going to bring up questions after because I don't want to cut you off, and I think it's just fair for you to share the full length of it.
Yeah.
I guess. All right, I will tell until I got incarcerated, and then we'll pause there until I went to jail the first time. From there, I went back to Montana, and then 3 months later, almost exactly, it was March 10th of 2017, my house got raided the second time by the Lake County Sheriff's Department. And after they raided it the second time, because I ran from the treatment center in Wyoming, they put me in jail that night in an isolation cell because the little tiny jail up where I'm at doesn't know how to properly house somebody in a wheelchair. So for the safety of myself and others, I got put into an isolation cell. And then from there, they sent me to Louisiana to go to a drug treatment program where they didn't think I could run from. I actually spent the entire time at that drug treatment center. I spent 4 months there. I almost got kicked out of it because I tried to coerce one of the locals into calling somebody that they knew and having them bring meth to the treatment thing, and then they told on me.
Shit. Jeez.
And then from there, I came back to Lake County, and Lake County left me alone. The sheriff's department, everything left me alone. I should have known why they were leaving me alone, but they were building a case. And then eventually the only thing they were able to finally ever to stick to me was a possession charge of heroin liquid, or trace amounts of heroin. When they raided my house the second time on March 10th, I told them that everything that they found in the house was mine before they even searched the whole house. And then I am on body cam footage telling an officer that what is in your hand is a syringe filled with heroin liquid that belongs to me, Thomas Parker. And so we couldn't get out of that charge because that's kind of ironclad.
Yeah.
And so I was sentenced on February 8th of 2018 to a 3-year Department of Corrections charge and sent up the stream. So do you want me to talk about, because from there is where the rest of my story, once I get out from that first charge, is where it ties into reconnecting with my now girlfriend, who actually got me to be sober. So
that's a lot to unpack. That's
Yeah.
crazy, like how much you went through, like just getting out of the service, and then that's where your life went.
So what, I mean, I know you could probably have a million different excuses. I'm sure you used all of them throughout the process, but what do you think was the driving factor that made drugs kind of the easy escape, or the thing that you felt was solving a problem?
So I've reviewed this heavily, I guess, if you will, both in jail and in my time in sobriety. And I don't think it was solving a problem. But I mean, it could be viewed as that. So I had a void in me, obviously. Dan, you understand being a veteran in the sense that when you were in, you had a purpose, you had a team, you had a job, you had something like that. You get out, you don't have that. So I could have been filling that void, but to be entirely honest, I actually said this in front of the judge when she asked me, like, I did drugs because I like them. Even sitting in front of you right now in this podcast, like, I still like them. One of the most incredible experiences I've ever had in my life was the first time I shot at meth. And which sounds weird, but I want to explain it to you. So when you have, I'm trying to think how to explain it. So your body naturally releases dopamine, but the largest natural release of dopamine is when you orgasm, and it's around 500 milligrams for a healthy adult. When you inject methamphetamine into your system, you release 1,500 milligrams of dopamine.
That's crazy.
Wow.
And so it is literally the most incredible thing I've ever tried. And to describe a drug addiction, I'm glad I get to use this. I thought of it the other day. A drug addiction is you chasing the echo of a brilliant song that was once sung to you. And before you realize it, once you get to the end of the cave, you're just surrounded in darkness, hearing the weird, tweaked, misshapen song that you once heard.
What's crazy about that is that I've heard that exact description of it before, because people I grew up around out there in the desert and all that were using heroin and meth out there, and described the same thing, that it was an escape and that it was an ultimate peak and of that dopamine level. And it's kind of like, it's nowhere similar, but I mean, you're hearing a lot of like hallucinogenic drugs being used nowadays, which obviously you have, natural like DMT or dopamine levels in your brain. So people are taking drugs to enhance that. So it makes sense that, people are using heroin or meth to bring out that and to distract kind of the reality of facing the challenges.
Yeah, and I wish I could say I was doing that, but in this time frame of my addiction, uh, was the most challenging time frame of my life, to be entirely honest.
Mm-hmm.
I got my house taken, so I was homeless in a wheelchair in Montana. Okay, throughout the winter, throughout the summer, everything like that. Um,
Jeez.
and then right before I went to right before I got incarcerated the first time, I'd pissed some people off that stole my wheelchair. Okay, they stole my
Who the fuck
wheelchair,
does that?
and it was during the winter. All right,
Oh
I
man.
crawled through the snow. We're talking like chest deep snow. Okay, um, and I didn't care. So here's to find a silver lining with it. Okay, so when I first got injured, people would invite me over for dinner or to do things, and they wouldn't think about it. I carry myself in a way that you don't see me as disabled, or at least I try to have you not. And so they wouldn't think about it. And then I go to their house, and all of a sudden there's stairs or there's something like that, and I can't get in their house. And so I wouldn't go because sitting on the floor is weird. Like being an amputee already draws attention. If you're an amputee sitting on the floor, like if you were to walk into your living room
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow and I'm just sitting on your floor, you would pause and panic for a second. You're like, whoa, why is there a legless man on the floor? And so I didn't like that attention.
Yeah.
But during my addiction, going to some of the places I went and everything, I didn't have that option.
Mm-hmm.
And so it forced, like, I guess not forced me, I forced myself to go through things that I wouldn't have willingly gone through had I not been in the pursuit of narcotics. And in doing so, it made me realize how capable I am. So we spoke about earlier that I had a man teach me how to fight after I got injured. The stuff that he taught me, I've not used ever, but I've been in several fights since being injured. Every time I get thrown on the ground or something like that. And I realized, and I've even been jumped by multiple people.
Jeez.
And I realized that I am capable. I'm capable of anything and everything. I just have to
Yep.
approach it differently.
Yeah. I wonder too, because I guess the way I want to approach this is identifying the markers, I suppose, of somebody who's going down that path. Like, how did you see yourself going that way? And obviously you were getting people that were trying to help, but was there ever a time where you almost got to a point, you almost had a breakthrough, you almost had somebody kind of pull you out of that path, but you just obviously clawed your way right back into it?
The one that I think, so the only other option or time that I would have quit doing drugs was the very first time I went to drug treatment. Uh, at the time, I was engaged to a woman that we're going to leave nameless. And I was engaged to her because she couldn't testify against me at that point in time, to be honest, if she was going to be my wife. But she got tired of our lifestyle and she went to treatment herself. She had 2 kids. I'd been with her for close to 5 years. And after she did that, I decided that, okay, I should change because I wanted my old lifestyle back. I didn't want to be alone. My identity was in those 3. And so I went to treatment. It was the first time I let everybody close to me know that I was a drug addict. Like my mom drove me, my stepdad, everything. They drove me to treatment, talked to me about it. The day before I got released from that treatment, I talked to my ex-fiance on the phone and I said, hey, like I got sober. Can we go back to what we were? If nothing else, can we at least be friends and see where it builds? And she told me no. She said that chapter in our lives had already passed. She wished me the best of luck. And I got released from treatment and immediately relapsed. Okay. So that was the only other time, I guess, prior to actually getting sober that I would have been willing to try to get sober.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can think of several times where I had like mental breakdowns kind of. and sat crying before I got high, or even after I got high sometimes, which was really weird because to be like feeling that euphoric but also that sad at the same time. But where I hated my life, like it seemed an elliptical hell that I had manufactured.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just this same thing over and over and over again, the same dumb stuff. But I was willing to look past all of the bad side of it just for the brief moment. Because we're like, when you shoot up, the part that I'm talking about, when you actually inject meth, the part I'm talking about maybe lasts for 3 to 7 seconds. And then you just feel weird and like whimsically moving the entire day. Like, and so I was able to, it's incredible thinking about it now, actually, that I was willing to look past all the bullshit, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Is that even something,
just for a couple seconds?
I'm kind of curious if it has an effect on you. Like, obviously having drug abuse, a lot of people that have been drug addicts at one point or another in their life, they can't watch movies where it shows drugs. They can't be around it. Is that kind of similar to you?
No. Because I view my drug addiction similar to my PTSD, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first got injured, any time that I heard a gunshot, my body immediately revved up. It's like, oh, stuff's going. And I didn't like that because I'm in Montana. People shoot, people hunt, everything like that. And so I purposely did exposure therapy to it.
Okay.
I accidentally did exposure therapy with my drug addiction when I first got sober. So I don't want to tell part of the other story. I'll tell that part. But no, it doesn't. I still run periodically or not periodically. I run in my wheelchair 5 days a week, and I'll find drug paraphernalia on the ground, use needles, other stuff like that. I found baggies with meth in them. Not a lot, but trace amounts. And when I found the baggie with meth and picked it up and held it in my hand, my first thought was, you can snort this real quick. No one would know. I'm not joking. And if there was a bag of meth on the table in front of me right now, that would be my first thought. You could do this. No one would know. You could do it once. Mm-hmm. But I have luckily been deliberate and painstaking in the past 2.5 years to restructure my life in a different way, to where I would have to willingly go against everything I've built in search of a relapse.
It's kind of interesting, and I'll make a quick point on what you just said, but it's kind of like for me growing up and seeing friends in high school who have been into drugs or see them shoot up and I've had to be in the same room or whatever. It's like if you've watched Breaking Bad or like other shows that have that, they actually had a pretty like spot on representation of what meth does, because I've watched people strung on meth and watched them sit on that bed and like they're floating above it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's why I kind of asked it, is some people are sensitive of seeing it and it can cause them to relapse.
No, and to be honest, I actually was talking to Dara about it. I want to watch. So I watched Breaking Bad before I was a meth addict, when I was just addicted to pills. Mm-hmm. But I want to watch it again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a different perspective of it now.
Yeah.
Now you can be like the veteran that calls out the inaccuracies in war movies, and that'll be inaccuracies in a drug show.
But there's like even a certain shot, like the cinematography of showing a needle close up going to a vein. You see the small blood kind of shoot through, and then you see it plunge. And I'm like, dude, that's so accurate, because I've watched people do that in a bedroom, and it's me not being a drug addict. It makes me like kind of like, I don't want to watch that because it brings me back to those experiences.
So you just brought up something that I would say is almost ritualistic for anybody that is a junkie. Mm-hmm. In the sense that I wrote a post on this a while back. But so have you given an IV, Dan, or both? Either one of you?
Oh yeah, okay. I know
a lot of IVs.
Okay. Yeah, and so when you give the IV, you see the flashback, and then and knowing that you hit it. Okay. So now I want you to try to imagine you're doing that to yourself, and you know that as soon as the flashback hits, that you are literally milliseconds away from the most incredible feeling that you can achieve.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you said watching that little bit of blood go in there, so when you make a meth mixture, okay, at least the ones that I made, the density of the liquid is different than blood, so they won't mix. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
you see the blood float.
You can see little tiny veins of blood shoot through the entire syringe if you hit a good vein. Okay. And so when you brought that up, you're like, oh, you see the little tiny bit of blood? So the other thing that happens when you shoot up is your esophagus will burn and you will have this heat in the center of your body. Okay. So when I have euphoric recalls, we were just talking about this. I have them often. Usually, if my brain is stagnant, if I'm trying to go to sleep, something like that, my brain's like, "Hey, remember that one time that you shot up doing this? That was really cool." And I'm like, my body will get hot. My face turned red for a second. My armpits are sweating when you brought that up, because my brain immediately was like, "Yeah, that's kind of cool."
Interesting.
And I caught it because So I guess to answer your question, do I have those things? Yes. Have I put in a net to make sure that they can't snowball? I hope so. I believe so.
People listening are like, Bo, why the fuck did you bring that up?
No, I'm glad you did, because
Yeah.
it's more organic and raw. Like, there's people that are listening to this that might have some sort of background with military, but not know anything about drugs.
I just look at it as the educational purpose because, like I said, I've never touched drugs. And I've been surrounded by probably almost 50% of my friends in like high school using them, and seen people strung out laying on top of each other in bedrooms. And it's just like, when I see it from sober eyes, it still even affects me in a way, because then it just takes me back to that memory that I want to try and block out. So I can imagine what it does for somebody that enjoys that memory. You know what I mean? It's an interesting...
And that's the hard part with it is training yourself to not enjoy it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To bring it around to something else that the veterans listening might be able to understand, or even anybody, that adrenaline rush you get from roller coasters, the first firefight you were in, your first football game, whatever it is. Everybody gets that adrenaline rush at some point in time, and some people take to that adrenaline rush, and usually end up in the military, I honestly think. But and so like I'm going to search it and try to feel that, because it makes you feel good to flirt with the fragility of your existence. That's part of an addiction. Every time you shoot up might be the last time you shoot up.
Yeah, it's and I won't go into details, but it's interesting because, you know, I know my dad's tried them for a little bit at one point or another in his life, and I think I really look up to him because of how strong he was able to just overnight cold turkey cut out of his life, you know, to save my mom, to save me. But it's interesting when I watch him, because he can watch movies, you know, he can dabble in medicinal marijuana, he can have a beer or two once in a while, and it doesn't affect him. It doesn't take him back. But I know that some people, it can just, like, you can't even put a beer around them, or it'll just trigger.
I know it's a completely different... Well, it might not be. It might be very, very much so connected, and maybe that's why you've been able to adapt to your PTSD as well as addiction, drug addiction. It's the same sort of triggers. Like, some people will feel something or hear something or see something that'll trigger PTSD, and some people are going to have a negative effect from that. Other people will process it and be like, damn, I remember that. That was a really shitty moment. I know how to process it and move on, and not make it like something that's going to negatively affect me or those around me.
And that's what I did with both PTSD and addiction, is like, okay, that bothered me, but why?
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, and I was blessed, I guess. It might catch people off guard. I spent a lot of time in isolation when I was locked up. Altogether, I think it was like 3 or 4 months total. And if you're ever end up in a situation where you're entirely isolated, within 2 weeks you start talking to yourself. Within 2 more weeks you start responding, and so I was able to delve into myself to try to understand myself better. And I recommend that to anybody that's listening. Like, if you're struggling with anything, like, find out why. Like,
be alone. You know, I love that you said that, because there's times, Dan always catches me. I always say the same thing. I'm like, I'm done traveling. And he's like, are you really done this time? And then like 2 weeks later, I'm going somewhere else.
Yeah.
But it's because I think honestly, the first time I really started to figure myself out is I spent a month on the road before I moved out here to North Carolina. And I encourage people, like, you want to get to know yourself, maybe not a month long, but I spent a month in nature alone without really anybody, camping and all that. And you kind of face a lot of things inside of you that you don't necessarily want to face, but you're challenged to do so. And it's interesting that when you're in isolation, like you said, being locked up, I'm assuming it was the same for you. Like you didn't want to face those things, but you had no other choice.
No, I mean, I did a good time, or I did a good job, I think, at least in the beginning of getting put in there, of trying to distract myself with anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I read like romance novels in jail, bro. Like any book they would give me, I would read. Like I don't like, and then I couldn't keep the intrusive thoughts out anymore.
Yeah.
Um, and they honestly started with the way that I was allowing people to treat were my first intrusive thoughts. So like I said, I didn't value myself at the time, and so I allowed people to treat me poorly. I used drugs as a social connection,
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of stuff, and I started looking at it and I was like, the younger you wouldn't have let anybody do that to you. Like, why is it okay now? Why is that person
Yeah.
okay to do that to you? And I realized that it's not like I was putting band-aids on things as an appeasement to try to move forward, and it wasn't right.
Yeah. I think the best thing is to ask yourself, would the 8-year-old me approve of who I am today?
Mm.
I can't ask that version because he was soft. I asked the teen version.
Well, the 15-year-old version.
Yeah.
So I want to keep going. How you met your girlfriend and how that story transpires.
Okay. So where we were in the story is I just got locked up. I wasn't sure how long I'd be locked up exactly. They said they were going to jail. I said, okay, let's do that. Which, real quick, is honestly the most disheartening sound you can ever be told. If you ever have to stand in a courtroom and the judge is like, all right, bailiff, take this man into custody. You're like, shit, I don't get to go home.
Yeah.
But so I went to jail, and it actually wasn't that bad. I spent a lot of time in isolation, and then I got transferred to a bigger jail where it was I was able to interact with people. So honestly, that part wasn't bad. And just like being in the military, I understood that I don't know if the Army is like this with the Marine Corps and the infantry. If we weren't doing anything, we couldn't exactly go anywhere. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but we didn't have to necessarily be in our room. Like, you
Mm.
could be at the
Yep.
gym, or you know what I'm saying? Like, so you were kind of confined. You had a little more room to move, but you were still kind of confined. And so you learn to fill your time with stuff. And so I worked out a lot when I was in jail. I would towards the end of my time being incarcerated at that time, I would do between 750 and 1,000 burpees a day.
Jeez.
Wow.
I did. People say wow, but when you don't have anything else to do other than like
Yeah.
I learned to play chess, I read books, and I worked out. Like that's all I did until I got a job. But so I got released out of there, and I got released out of there September 16th. 2 days later, on my birthday, I ran into my now girlfriend. Come here. That lady.
Slide it right in.
I ran into her at the gas station. One of her older children had just gotten a surgery done. They'd been at the hospital all night. And in her words, she thought that she looked horrible. To me, she looked like an angel. We grew up together. We met each other when we were 6, and we went through school and everything together. I tried to pursue her in high school, apparently not hard enough because she dated my best friend instead of me.
Oh, shit.
Anyway, so yeah, after high school, she got married and adopted 4 kids from that marriage and gave birth to one.
Wow.
She did that when she was 18 because she is a saint. And
Wow.
so now fast forward her life to there. I see her and I'm like, oh, hi, Dara. And she walks over and she's talking to me. And so to be respectful, because the last time I'd interacted with her, I knew she was married. And so I was like, oh, hi, how are you? How's your family? How's your husband? You know, everything, asking polite questions. Right? And she tells me that she got divorced. And I thought, okay, that I looked sincere and sounded sincere when I said, I'm sorry to hear that. But apparently, according to her, I looked like a wolf looking at a baby sheep.
You said game on.
Yeah, I was like, I'm so sorry to hear that. And immediately followed it up with, we should get coffee sometime. Side note about me, I've never drank coffee. I don't like coffee. It tastes like angry earwax. Okay. But if I got the opportunity to sit across from the table from this beautiful angel while she sipped a cup of coffee, I would choke it down. It's fine. She said, yeah, let's do that. And then she ignored me for 3 months, which is honestly probably for the best, because I went to jail a couple more times that month, or those 3 months. And then, so we said, like I said, every time I would go to jail, if I could talk my way into a circle and get sent somewhere else, I would. So that December 6th, I got released from jail. December 8th, I got rearrested after the Missoula County Sheriff's Department raided my hotel room. I got arrested and got sent to the VA treatment center in Helena, Montana. I specifically requested that one because at that one you can have your cell phone and tobacco.
That's where my family lives.
In Helena?
In Helena, that small little historical town.
Yeah, unless you're in politics, there's no point in living there.
No. Or you're a cowboy.
Or a cowboy. So I went there, and those of you that can't tell in my video, I'm obese. And Dara posted a picture on Snapchat of a meal she had cooked. And it looked delicious. It was some mashed potatoes, some steak, some asparagus. There was like some strawberry cut up on it. Like, it looked beautiful, right? And so I messaged her and I said, what, you can cook too? And so we started talking. I immediately was honest with her, to use words that she has said before. My candor with her established a bedrock for us to build upon, even though neither one of us were looking for that at the time. I told her what I had done, that I'd been to jail, that I was a drug addict, where I was, everything. And she didn't judge me. She just talked to me about it, asked questions, tried to understand it. Mm-hmm. And in doing so, we became each other's solace, enjoying our brief little moments. We were able to message or video call or whatever. And I messed it up at one point in time. So I was used to being in the street and talking to women that don't have as high of value or morals of themselves as Dara does. And she sent me a picture of her in which she looked beautiful. It was her and her kids. And I responded with, God damn, girl, you look thick as fuck.
Classic.
Yeah. So we were messaging on Snapchat at the time. So they'd been pretty instantaneous responses. She didn't respond for a half hour, for 45 minutes, for an hour. We're getting over an hour now, and I messaged her and I was like, hey, I'm sorry. Like, you look beautiful. Like, I'm used to talking to other women. Like, those words were inappropriate. Instantly, she says, thank you.
I was going to say, Tommy, you've read a lot of romance novels in jail. And I was about to say, once you start talking about your girlfriend, your whole tone changed. And I was like, oh, he's got a little romantic side to him. And then I was like, damn, girl, you look thick as fuck.
He was reading the wrong romance novels in jail.
I did. I guess. But so after that, we were able to talk more and everything. And so I got released from that treatment center February 4th of 2019. And I immediately, so I was supposed to go to Missoula County and stay in Missoula County because that's where my probation was, because Lake County didn't want me back up here. I didn't listen, and I came back to Lake County to see Dara. We hung out, and so to my surprise, because of us talking and everything, I stayed sober 5 days out of that treatment center, which doesn't sound that crazy, but that was the longest I'd ever willingly stayed sober out of a treatment center.
Wow.
And I point that distinction out because if you put a drug addict in a controlled environment, they'll stay sober. You know what I'm saying? They'll conform to their environment. But it's when they're released back to the streets when it becomes their choice, when it's a different thing. But I stayed sober for 5 days, and upon relapse, I told Dara that I relapsed. I showed up to her house. I sat outside of her door. So once again, we were talking about houses that aren't handicap accessible. I sat on the ground in front of Dara's door in the snow and told her I relapsed. This was great. I'm sorry. I'm a piece of shit again. You take care. Because she has a career and kids and everything. And this is a tiny town. There's 5,000 people that live in this town. So when anybody sneezes, people know what's going on. And so I didn't think she needed the negativity that was going to come along with it. And she said, no. She's like, you're not going anywhere. She's like, I don't like that you do drugs, but that's not you. Which kind of caught me off guard because you guys kind of saw her briefly in the video. Yeah. But I'm going to say this quietly. She's a lot hotter than I am. I don't know if you can hear that, so I'll say it louder. She's a lot hotter than I am, okay? I had to approach NASA to borrow their space shuttle to try to reach the league that she is in. I threw a grappling hook out the window, hooked her real quick, and then crashed the space shuttle down and brought her down here. She doesn't know that she is actually not from this lower level of dating. So don't tell her.
You have an alien is what you're saying.
I guess, dude. But no, and so it caught me off guard, okay? And I don't know if I said this a second ago, but Dara is sapiosexual, which means that she's attracted to intelligence, okay? And so when I use, I don't feel like I'm as smart or I'm as quick-witted. I don't like being a flaily creature. So everything is really controlled and deliberate and on purpose. So like the flamboyancy and charisma I have now doesn't exist when I'm high on meth. Like everything is very controlled and deliberate, which isn't the person that Dara likes. Dara actually likes the controlled chaos that exists of me. Mm-hmm. And so I tried to control my use, which any addict will tell you that that's not a thing. And it doesn't matter if you're an alcoholic or a junkie, like you can't control your use. And I would have told them, yeah, you can't. But this time I did. If I was going to see her, I wouldn't use, which made me use less. But I had already fucked up enough in the past that it didn't keep me out of jail. The first Valentine's Day that Dara and I hung out, she took me to go see my probation officer. And my probation officer threw me in jail. And Dara drove from Missoula back to Lake County. This is also the only time I ever bonded out. So every time I was thrown in jail, I had a minimum bond of $50,000. Like, I don't know why I'm like, I'm not paying that. This was the one time it was $5,000. So 10% was 500. So I called my sister, I called my mom, and I was like, hey, can you guys come sign my bond warrant? I have the cash, I'll bond myself out. And they said no, because they didn't want to be held liable for the $5,000 if I didn't go to court. Mm-hmm. But this incredible woman sitting over there was willing to. Like I said, so she's divorced now, so she's a single mother, but was willing to sign a line and be held liable for $5,000 if I didn't go to court. Wow. And she did. She came and she signed the contract. And when we got in the car, I told her, I said, you understand that if I don't go to court, that you're liable for $5,000. And she looked me in my face and she said, you'll go. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't anything. It was just unadulterated, pure belief in the fact that I wouldn't fuck her over, which blew my mind because to me, I was a snake in the Garden of Eden. Like I didn't, you know what I'm saying? Like I didn't belong where I was, but somehow I was allowed to be there. So we fast forward February 20th. That doesn't sound right. February 21st. I go back to jail. It wasn't because I skipped my court date or anything. It was because my PO had built a case against me to revoke my probation. Dara took me down to my PO. I went to, Dara didn't. Sorry. I went over to see Dara the night before, knowing that I had to see my PO the next day, knowing that I'd missed my appointment from the 20th, knowing I'd go to jail. So hoping, I'd went over there for crude intentions, if you will. And when I laid next to her on the couch, I felt safe and I fell asleep. And I slept all the way until the next morning. And I woke up when she woke me up to say that she was taking her daughter to get tonsil surgery. I slept through the entire surgery and I woke up that afternoon to Dara rubbing my back. Dara and her daughter Nissa were sitting next to me on the couch. And I woke up. There was no weird looks. I didn't have to worry that like my stuff was missing or anything weird like that. I just felt safe. And I told Dara that I had to go. I had to go check in with my PO. I wasn't sure what would happen. And I gave her a hug and a kiss, and I headed out. I got a ride down to my probation office, and I went to jail. I called Dara from the jail and said, hey, I got thrown in jail. I'm not going to be able to see you. I don't know how long I'm going to be in jail. She said, okay. And we talked on the phone periodically. And then when I got the paperwork saying that I was actually being revoked and moved back to Lake County jail, that's when I realized, like, oh, I might actually be in jail for a long time. So Lake County sent a bench warrant to Missoula County to have me taken back to Lake County and ironically put back in the same exact isolation cell that I was put in when I started this charge. Kind of funny full circle thing. I was also had a large enough bond. So this gives you an idea of what the Lake County court system thought of me. I had a $500,000 bond. Okay. Wow, it was the highest one in the jail. The next closest one to me was a dude that was in there for homicide.
Wow.
If that gives you an idea of, I'm not trying to be boastful. That's just how the court system where I'm from viewed me at the time.
That's crazy how they put you on the same level as a homicide for drug abuse above.
Yeah.
Yeah. My bond was above his, by like 100,000 or 200,000.
That's way above.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And so now that I was being revoked, I thought I was going to be down for a long time. So talking to Dara, I told her, like, look, dude, like you are a catch. You're too incredible, man. Like, don't wait for me. Like, and she would say stuff like, no, I like you. Like, and I was like, no, like, I don't know how long I'm going to be gone. And I have this view that when you go into jail, it's like a timeless echo. It's like a timeless bubble of Groundhog's Day. It's the same shit. They're going to bring me food. They're going to bring me food. They're going to bring me food. I sleep. They're going to bring me, like, it's the same shit. But you have to understand that while you're going through a Groundhog's Day, everybody outside isn't. Mm-hmm. They're interacting. They're living their lives. And so for you to ask somebody to put their love on hold for you because you fucked up doesn't make sense to me. Yeah. And so I wanted Dara to live a full, happy life. If I was going to be gone a year, 3 years, 5 years, I didn't know. And it didn't matter. I fucked up. I ate the meal. I have to pay the bill. That's how that works. She wasn't accepting that. She's like, nope, I'm going to wait for you. I was like, don't do that. That's stupid. So we talked every day. And I didn't like talking to her every day. This is silly. I didn't like talking to her every day because it's expensive. Like, it bothered me that she was willing to pay money to talk to me on the phone because I didn't feel like I was that important. In us talking, though, I talked to my attorney, and my attorney worked a deal to get me released to go to a PTSD treatment center because his whole case that he was building was that I do drugs because I have really bad PTSD. And I told him, no, that's not why. And he told me, cool, I need you to shut up when we're in the courtroom. And so here was the catch, though. For me to be released from jail to go to this PTSD treatment center, somebody had to willingly let me move in with them and be an officer of the court and tell the court if I messed up. I didn't even try to call my mom or my sisters or any of my family. They all live here, but I didn't try to call them because I wasn't going to ask them to put themselves in a funny situation, to put themselves in a situation where their boy or their husband or whatever, because I didn't get along with my sister's husband or my mom's husband, or who I now call stepdad, I guess, at the time. And so I wasn't going to try to do that. I wasn't actually even allowed at either of the houses. But I was talking to Dara, and it got brought up in conversation, and I didn't ask her, and she said, I'll do it. I was like, wait, hold on. You understand that our relationship prior to this had been kept on the down low. It was really quiet, you know. I would have to move in with you, okay? Live with you and your kids. Their dad would have to agree it. Like your work might not be happy at the fact, like, and he's like, I don't care. We'll deal with it. Okay, so I called my attorney and I told him, and my attorney immediately called Dara and said, you understand who you're letting move into your house, right? And she's like, yeah, I grew up with him. And then the prosecuting attorney called Dara and said, you understand who you're allowing to move into your house, right?
Holy shit.
And Dara was like, yeah, I grew up with him. And you're okay with this? And yeah. So while all this was going on, Dara and I talked on the phone one night. And I had what I like to call an honest encounter with reality.
Mm-hmm.
After we got off the phone, I was reading my book and the lights turned off. And so I closed my book and I went over to my beautifully polished stainless steel mirror and started brushing my teeth with my Bob Barker toothpaste. And I looked at myself as best you can in the back of a polished spoon. And I didn't like what I saw. I wasn't happy with who I was anymore. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't want to do this anymore. But I didn't know how to do anything else. I'd done this so long, I had no idea how to be anything else. And the next morning, I talked to Dara on the phone, or the next day, I'm not sure if it was the morning. And I told her that if everything works out, if I get released when I'm supposed to, that I will never put meth or my old lifestyle above you. And when the words fell out of my mouth, I didn't know that I could believe them. And Dara told me close to a year later that she didn't know that she could believe them either when I said them. But she was willing to try. So I got released from jail March 7th. I knew when I got released from jail that I could not do drugs anymore, because the minute that I do drugs, I don't care about anything and nothing matters. So we had talked about being around drugs and seeing them on TV. So I brought up loyalty earlier as well too. So I had an acquaintance, a business associate from the street that was still in the street that had called me and said, bro, I need your help. I need your network, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to go help him. I told Dara. Dara didn't get mad. Dara didn't get upset. She said, okay. I told her I wouldn't be gone very long. She, at the time, didn't say anything, but after talking about it later, she's like, I knew you wouldn't be right back. And I left.
Smart woman.
I left and I went and did this stuff, and I handled this stuff. And I got a text on my phone to my phone at like 2 a.m. And when I left, it was like 1 or 3 p.m. I had a text at 2 a.m. from Dara. And all it says is, hey, I'm still awake if you need a ride or anything. And I cooked food. It's in the oven, ready for you when you get home. And I would have thought I got hit by a truck, to be entirely honest. Like, I had a visceral reaction to reading that there was this angel, this woman that I didn't deserve, that was outside of my reality, that is not mad at me because I'm off doing dumb dope boy stuff, doing hood rat stuff. She doesn't care. She wants to know if she can help. And she also wants me to know that she has prepared me a meal. Right? And I had her come get me immediately. There was one other time that this is the only time in my sobriety that I almost relapsed. So once again, the same person. I was at a place I shouldn't have been. I watched a girl trying to inject herself with meth, and she missed, like, I don't know, 10 or 11 times, couldn't hit a vein. And it was dry, like it was physically bothering me. And so I was like, hey, can I help you? And so I did it. I hit the vein, shot her up and everything. And you alluded to this talking about Breaking Bad. Yeah. So while there is the physical thing going on inside of you, there is an obvious thing going on the outside of you. You can see your eyes roll back, like you make kind of like an orgasm face. And when I saw that, I had been sober maybe a week, maybe less. Every atom, fiber, everything that I'm made of vibrated. Get high, get high, get high. And I called it like I saw it, and I was like, I gotta go. I'm gonna relapse. Like, and I haven't been back around situations like that. Okay. And so I had said that I rebuilt my life in a way that I'd have to willingly go against it. Yeah. So I realized that I had a void. I know I'm a person that if I stagnate, that I immediately start doing stuff that I shouldn't. Like, I'll break things to see what's inside of it. Like, I don't know. If I stagnate, like and so I went on a search for this and to fill this void, and I found it in a weird spot, running, or my version of running, in my wheelchair. I was in vet court in Missoula, Montana, and they were talking about that there would be a veteran suicide awareness and prevention half marathon. I'd been doing some running in my wheelchair and was like, okay, I can do that. The furthest I'd gone was 4 or 5 miles, something like that. And I was like, nah, I can take this on. And I took it on, and I hated it, to be entirely honest. It was set up in a 4-lap succession. The first lap, I ran it, and I was like, hey, man, that's a 5K. You can be done. No one will judge you. You're the only wheelchair person here. But this other little dark, cynical mind or voice in my mind was like, no, I'll judge you. I will judge you forever. So I ran the second lap, and I was like, you can stop. And that other voice was like, no, you can't. So I ran the third lap, and by the end of the third lap, beginning of the fourth lap, my shoulders, my triceps, my chest, everything burned so bad that I couldn't feel it anymore. I was literally a perpetual motion machine. Like, I don't even think I was telling my arms to push my wheels. Like, they were just doing it. And as I started the fourth lap, I see the judge of the vet court that I'm in. She's running it. And I hate going to vet court. It actually wasn't even in my decision for me to go to vet court. They somehow snuck me in there. Later, I would get paperwork to get taken back out of it. But I see the judge for vet court. She's running the race. And I tell her she better hurry up. And she's like, oh, I'm going to catch you. And so I passed her. And I said something like, if I beat you, do I not have to come to court Monday? I don't remember what it was. But I kept driving because I had this weird feeling that she was right behind me, kind of. And so I kept driving and driving and driving, like beyond what I was capable of. And then the craziest thing happened. The anger, pain, jealousy, self-loathing, everything that was just kind of sitting inside of me dissolved. It was completely gone. I didn't know that there was a word for it at the time. Dara's taught me it since. It's called catharsis. I achieved catharsis by pushing my body to the point where it wanted to give up. But something else incredible happened. I was high. So going from being a person that sought out a chemical high to finding a high that I fabricated by trying to break myself off was incredible to me. And the high lasted forever, well into the night. Like, I was on cloud 9. Like, after I got done with the race, like, I didn't even feel stiff. I was like, what? Like, but it was incredible. So I kept chasing it and chasing it and chasing it. Unfortunately, I've now pushed that high so far in front of me that the last time I tapped into it, I ran 40 consecutive miles.
Jeez.
And since then, I have ran 9 half marathons and 2 full marathons. In the year 2020, between January 1st and December 31st, I ran 2,431 miles in my wheelchair that year.
That's crazy.
I love it, dude. It centers me. Like we were saying about you spending the month out in the woods and stuff, like the discomfort of it, like it centers me.
There's a zen to it, and everybody has it. Everybody has that one thing. Like for you, it's running. You know, for Dan, it's something completely different. For me, it's being in the outdoors. You know, and Tommy, I gotta say, man, it's crazy to hear all this because, and I know Dan's probably thinking the same thing, but like we got to know you. I mean, we shared drinks and hung out, you know, at that event, but I had no idea like the story and kind of all the experiences you've been through. And just to hear about Dara, I mean, I don't even need to say it, but it's like, man, you found like a solid woman, like somebody that really
not solid. Like you said, otherworldly.
A unicorn in people's terms, to where like somebody that puts your feelings first and really cares about you no matter the circumstance. And I truly believe that was like your calling. Like something kept pulling you and something kept pulling her to stay by your side. And it's just incredible to hear that relationship that you guys have.
No, we wouldn't have met at the Salt Lake event. I wouldn't be working for Mission 60. Dara and I wouldn't be launching a company through Warrior Rising. We wouldn't be doing any of this stuff if I wouldn't have crossed paths with her again. And I've told this to her, like, I was completely okay with slowly dying in the grave that I dug. It was what it was. Like, I had built an empire of dirt, if you will, and I was
Yeah.
proud of it.
What do you think was the most, I guess, beneficial moment for self-growth that you've learned from being in prison or being locked up or going through the experiences of drug abuse that you've been through?
Ownership. Doesn't matter if you succeed, if you fail, if you didn't do anything. Ownership and inaction. So one big thing with my recovery, with me going to jail. You said prison. I actually never made it to a state prison. I don't
Okay.
want to claim anything that I wasn't. That's just not where I ended up.
Yeah.
I did spend almost 2 years incarcerated, and that's why I say it that way. But no, so ownership. You know what I'm saying? I was a drug addict when my house got raided. I've talked to other drug addicts. Prime example, a person that I used to do drugs with. She still does drugs. Her house just recently got raided.
Wow.
And she said something of like, these cops won't leave me alone, or something to that effect. And I was like, yeah, of course they won't. Like, you're breaking the law. And
Why
so
would they?
taking ownership of it, and then the take action thing. So I believed that a lot more things would bother me being sober. I liked, like, as much as I hated my drug life, I liked the chaos of it. Like, I'm more comfortable in chaos. That's who I am. So I thought that living a mundane, dad-like lifestyle was going to be boring, but I love it. And I thought that establishing and maintaining sobriety would have been a lot harder. But it wasn't until the last attempt, if you will, that I actually even truly tried, that I took action on doing it. I stood in my own way the whole time because I thought, like, oh, so everyone really props this up that, like, it's one day at a time for the rest of your life. I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
The first year was establishing sobriety and recovery. Anything beyond that is maintaining. If you did your work in the first year, from here it's just building.
Well, it's so important with what you said too, is like ownership and choice, right? Everything that you do is your choice. Like, yes, there are outside influences that can cause you to react and make a different choice, but ultimately the choice is yours. And like you said, I mean, Dara is an angel from the heavens, literally, but you still chose to put her above your addiction.
Yeah.
You chose to put her above all the other bad choices you could have made. And
because she deserved it. Sorry,
exactly. No, but
And she put you before your addiction.
Yeah. And
on the flip side,
like if and they talk about, you talk about this all the time, and whether you're talking about addiction, PTSD, recovery, people who've gone through, abuse and things like that, like, you have to still make the choice to recover yourself.
Yeah.
Like, nobody can do it for you. It has to be your own choice.
Yeah. It's like that thing. I'm going to plagiarize this incorrectly too, but the thing that I see circle around social media sometimes, that like, life is hard. Being fat is hard. Being thin is hard. Being broke is hard. Being rich is hard. Like, choose your hard. Like, you have to make a choice, and whether people realize it or not, but inactivity is still a choice. You're choosing to stagnate.
Yeah.
Yeah. No choice is still a choice.
Yeah. And there's nothing easy about life whatsoever.
No,
Everything is hard.
When you realize that life is going to suck, but it's also going to be incredible at the same time. But if you're focused on the fact that it's hot outside, or it's cold outside, or that the neighbors have a nicer car or something like that, you're going to miss the first couple steps of your child walking, or the pure joy on your child's face as they win a sports game, or the pit of sadness when they feel like they've failed. Like, there's so many little things that make up the human experience. But if you're worried about the things that aren't right, you'll never see the things that are.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think, we lightly touched on, Mission 60, and I want to kind of go into that. But what, obviously, besides the events that we've met up with, what are you working on at the moment with them?
With Mission 60, I am still a keynote speaker for them. I am helping. I'm one of the veterans on their Endless Six portion of the Deliberate Discomfort Challenge, and I still do some of their masterclass calls with some of their contacts that want to go through the master classes.
Yeah.
Which I'm shamelessly plug. If you are a company that is listening to this, think that might work, go to mission60.com, check out their stuff. Jason Van Camp wrote an incredible book. It's called Deliberate Discomfort. Incredible veteran stories in there. And
you beat me to it.
I was, you guys wrote a book.
Yeah, you totally beat me to it because I was just about to tell people, like, you know, that are listening, that are interested or own a veteran business, and, you know, they're looking to further promote it or further grow it. Obviously, Dan and I and Tom have a company, United Valor. We went through the program and met you guys in Salt Lake City, and it was truly an incredible experience. And I know Dan personally just did the Deliberate Discomfort Challenge. I maybe did a quarter of the workout portion of it, and didn't. It's crazy when you see like what's on that list. But for people that are looking for just a change in lifestyle, like a massive change, that's one challenge I would highly recommend.
Absolutely.
I went through the Deliberate Discomfort Challenge, the first one in January, and actually Dara is going through it right now. Started recently. It's an incredible challenge. It focuses on 6 domains. It made me realize when I did it how one-dimensional I was as a person. And so, yeah. And then you brought up Warrior Rising. Please go check out warriorrising.org.
Yeah.
You guys started your own business. Dara and I are trying to start ours. We were at a business shower event in Napa last week, 2 weeks, I don't know, recently. And we did not win. The gentleman that did win built an incredible online learning platform for the vision impaired. But I brought up that we didn't win because the cool thing about Warrior Rising is even if you don't win one of their business shower events, they're not going to drop you. They're still working with us, helping us refine our stuff and bring our product to market.
What is that product? I'm actually genuinely curious.
Yeah.
So our product is a specialty designed wheelchair bag designed by the wheelchair user. The ones that are on the market are made of low quality product or designed by somebody that I don't think planned to use them. Honestly, they're just like, it's a bag. There you have it. It's yours.
Yeah.
And we have some other things that I'm not gonna include in the podcast, but some hopefully industry breaking add-ons that will allow wheelchair users to feel more independent.
That's awesome.
Well, hopefully on your guys' path to that, as things get updated, we can share more on it.
Yeah. What's
we'd love to
is
share
there
more.
anything we can share? What's the name of your company?
There's not, the product that we took there and presented them to. They said they liked it, but we thought small town, small mind type thing.
Yeah.
And they introduced us to some people that have larger networks that are more knowledgeable in the field, to have us to reapproach it. I can show a prototype that we built that shows our logo, I guess. We can grab the bag over there.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's pretty incredible what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
I'm a dog. It could be over there by the supplements, babe. Babe, I want you to know I leaned out of your way as you walked behind me.
Oh, you're
Yeah, this is our first prototype that we brought there.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
That's our logo. So
that's awesome. No, it's exciting. You know what comes from a community of people who are really trying to like bond together and promote each other really and just make sure that everybody can find their own success. But I think especially when it comes to stories like yours, like I know you're going to say, oh, it's just a story, you know, because you're humble and I know you are. But truthfully, I think it does inspire a lot of people to take action and to discount inaction and try and change something in their lives for the better. And whether that's a small change or something significant like overcoming drug addiction or alcoholism or whatever it is, you know, looking at their physical disabilities or any sort of inability to do something, that it's just a choice, like we said. And I think you're an inspiration to a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And I think, as we, start to kind of come to an end, I want to know from, your perspective. I think it's important from everything that you've been through, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of veterans who have struggled with similar, positions that you've been in. What are some words of advice to people that are either transitioning or maybe going through some of the drug abuse or just trying to get back to society the proper way?
If you feel unhappy, find out why. I guess look to give you the advice that worked the best for me. Look in the mirror, evaluate who you are. You brought up Bo. Would who you are currently jive with 8-year-old you? And if you're not living true to yourself, then everything is going to be even harder. The minute that I changed and became more true to who I truly am, life synced up.
Yeah. I think one of the more important quotes I've heard that's kind of stuck with me is, if you're green, you grow, and if you're ripe, you rot. Mm-hmm. So you always have to be constantly looking at yourself as a vine or a plant. If you can constantly keep yourself green and you're constantly learning things and truly being inspired and not wanting to just kind of sit there and, deal with the struggles and things you've been with, but be more on top of it and say, hey, you know what? I've been through this, but fuck it. I'm going to excel above it. I want to find out who I really am. And going back to that little kid inside of you, does that little kid agree with your mindset? Does that little boy or that little girl in you agree with where you are in life? Or would they say, hey, put a smile on your face, let's get to work?
You just brought up something that made me think of something. Be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the way I was raised growing up and also in the military, men aren't vulnerable. We don't show our emotion. We don't show our weakness. I can't do that. I also didn't think that love was real, but to have a woman that is out of my league reassemble me with belief, trust, and love, but only because I was vulnerable. I have to believe now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's incredibly powerful. I mean, vulnerability builds so much trust, and truly being vulnerable is how you can connect with people on a completely different level that is indescribable, honestly, until you do it. Well, Tommy, I can't thank you enough for everything and for sharing your story once again. I know you get asked to share it a few times here and there, but but honestly, it's truly powerful. And for you to go through as much as you have and still, obviously have a life-changing moment in the woman next to you, to just have a positive outlook on life and to want to inspire other people to be their own change and really make a choice for growth. Just can't thank you enough for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Bo and Dan, for having me. And
of course,
that's our job as human beings. If we are inspired by something or somebody, it's our job to carry that inspiration to the next person.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, thank you. And we look forward to keeping in touch with you and hearing about the progress of your business. And, just thanks again for being on and sharing it. It really means a lot. And I'm sure the listeners are really going to enjoy this episode and hopefully take away a very important lesson from it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tommy.